I knew the killer before I saw the body. The ground gave him away. Water pooled around my boots in a thin, oily film of rain, blood and whatever passed for city dust in this part of town. The alley was one of those narrow service cuts between neon-bright bars and glass towers, a place meant for deliveries and trash, not for corpses. Yet here we were. Blue and red lights strobed against brick and metal, smearing the scene in sick carnival colors. Crime scene tape fluttered in the wind, slapping wetly against a dented dumpster. Techs moved in the background like ghosts in white coveralls, but they kept a respectful distance. The body was mine. Professionally, anyway. Male. Alpha. Late 20s, maybe early 30s. Expensive watch. Good shoes. Clothes that said he had money or wanted people to think he did. He lay on his back, eyes open to the sky he'd never see again, rain pooling in his lashes. More important than his eyes were the marks on his chest. The shirt had been cut cleanly down the middle and pushed aside, exposing bare skin. Symbols had been carved into him with something sharp enough to split flesh without tearing it. Precise lines, no hesitation. Whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing. My mouth went dry. No. No, no, no. I crouched slowly, careful not to step on any of the yellow evidence markers, and leaned in just enough to see properly. Rain pattered off my hood and cap, ran down the back of my neck, slipped beneath my collar. I ignored it. The pattern on his chest was unmistakable. A circle intersected by 3 lines, like a stylized claw mark. And a secondary mark just below the clavicle, 2 short parallel cuts, angled just so. My lungs forgot how to work for a second. Not them. I forced myself to breathe. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Clinical. Detached. I'd spent years building that distance, layering it between me and every crime scene like glass. This one shattered it in an instant. "You okay, ref?" One of the techs spoke from somewhere behind me, voice muffled by a mask. "Fine," I said. Which was a lie and everyone knew it. "Get me full body shots from all angles. Don't touch the markings until I say, got it." The symbols weren't simple decoration. They were language. And I could read them far too well. I took in the rest of the scene. No obvious signs of struggle, no defensive wounds on the victim's hands. This hadn't been a fight. This had been a ritual. He'd probably walked here willingly. Alpha. Money. Pretty face. The type my old pack liked to recruit or break. The world tilted. Just a fraction. Stop it. I straightened, my knees protesting. The rain picked up, turning from drizzle to a needling curtain. The city loomed over us, skyscrapers with glowing windows. Advertising screens shouting about new phones and energy drinks, while a dead man cooled on wet concrete. "Raphael." The voice slid between the sirens and the rain, low and calm enough to cut through everything. Of course he was here. I didn't turn immediately. I took a breath, counted to 3, and put my face back on. The one that said I was the smartest bastard in the room and too tired to care. Then I turned. Aiden stood just beyond the tape, the kind of tall that made the air feel thinner around him. He wore a long dark coat that was already soaked through at the shoulders, droplets clinging to the sharp line of his jaw. His hair was damp, pushed back like he'd run his hand through it on the way over. His badge hung openly from a chain at his neck. His eyes, a cool gray that always made me think of stormwater drains, flicked over the scene, then settled on me. 5 years, he said, stepping under the tape without waiting for anyone to wave him in, and you're still always the first one on scene. Still not big on waiting for backup, huh? His tone was almost conversational. Almost. "Someone has to work while you're enjoying the traffic," I said. My voice came out steady, which I decided to be proud of. A corner of his mouth twitched, like he almost smiled and then remembered who he was talking to. He moved closer, boots splashing in a shallow puddle, and the air shifted. Even with damp asphalt and blood trying their best to drown everything out, his scent slid. Under my guard, clean ozone, like the moment before lightning, edged with something darker. Alpha. Controlled. Contained. My blockers held. Mostly. "Walk me through it," he said. "Not please. Not if you don't mind." Aiden didn't waste words on soft edges when he thought they weren't needed. I turned back to the body before he could read too much in my face. "Victims and Alpha," I started. "High-end clothes, no wallet in sight. Either taken or he didn't bring it. No defensive wounds, no obvious restraints marks. Odds are, he knew his killer. Or at least didn't think he was in danger." "And the artwork?" Aiden asked, stopping at my shoulder. "Too close." I knelt again, forcing my muscles not to tense when he mirrored the movement beside me. His coat brushed my sleeve. I focused on the corpse like my life depended on it. Ritualistic, I said. Repeated pattern, clean lines, depths consistent. Killer's steady-handed and practiced. This isn't a one-off. It's either not his first, or he's trained on something else. He wasn't improvising. Aiden hummed, a low sound in his chest. Looks like something from those old pack initiation manuals, he said casually. You know, the ones you told internal affairs you never had access to. There it was. I didn't look at him. You should be careful throwing around the word pack in public reports, I said. Politicians get nervous. I'm not writing a report, he replied. I'm asking the best profiler in the city if this looks like something he's seen before. My pulse thumped unpleasantly in my ears. No. You don't get to drag me back there. It looks like a killer who wants us to think he knows old rituals, I said, skirting the line. Whether he actually does is another question. Is it? His tone made it clear he didn't believe my deflection for a second. I kept my gaze on the carved circle, the intersecting lines, the small secondary cuts that only meant one thing in a language I'd sworn never to speak again. My vision tunneled for a moment. The alley turned into another place. Dirt instead of pavement, fire instead of neon. A ring of faces watching, waiting. Rain stung my cheek, dragging me back. Not then. Now. I inhaled, slowly. The smell of blood hit the back of my throat, metallic and heavy. I pushed past it, digging deeper, parsing through layers the way I'd been trained to do with scent signatures before I ever touched a crime lab database. Blood. Fear. The sharp, bright note of an alpha's last adrenaline spike. Under that, something colder, sharper. The killer's scent, faint, coiled like a shadow. And beneath that, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. A familiar echo. A trace that belonged to me. My stomach lurched. It wasn't exact. It was wrong, stretched, warped, like someone had taken my old pack scent, stripped out everything but the bones, and painted with it using unfamiliar hands. I froze. If I moved, I might give it away. If I breathed too deeply, I might choke on it. Beside me, Aiden went still too. He didn't know why, not yet, but he felt the shift. He always did. His attention narrowed, locking on me like a laser sight. What did you just pick up? He asked quietly. The question wasn't for the room. It was for me. I made myself look down at the body again, as if all I'd seen was a new angle to the same puzzle. Residual scent, I said. My voice sounded almost normal. Almost. Killer stayed close for a while. Watched him die. He wasn't in a hurry. And? Aiden pressed. You flinched before you said that. Of course he noticed. I swallowed. The rain felt suddenly colder, creeping down my back like fingers. Rough. His tone softened, just barely. What did you recognize? I lifted my head and finally met his eyes. Gray. Steady. Way too sharp. Nothing good waits on the other side of this, a part of me whispered. You open your mouth and you're back in the circle, back in the dirt, back in the... Nothing, I said. Aiden's jaw tightened. Nothing, I repeated, each word deliberate, and that's the problem. The briefing room always felt colder than the rest of the building, like someone had set the thermostat to intimidate. Glass walls. Metal table. 2 walls taken up by massive displays, city maps with glowing red markers, a scrolling list of data points, and currently, a neatly organized breakdown of the autopsy we'd just received. Victim, male, alpha, 29. Cause of death, exsanguination. Post-mortem carvings, ritualistic. Someone had thoughtfully blurred the worst of the photos, which was cute, considering what we usually dealt with. I sat at the table with my hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee I'd already forgotten the taste of. The caffeine wasn't the point, the warmth was. It gave my fingers something to do that wasn't shaking. Across the table, Aiden sat with the relaxed tension of someone who could spring into motion at any second. He'd ditched the soaked coat, leaving just a dark shirt that pulled smoothly across his shoulders. His badge rested beside his elbow like punctuation. He wasn't looking at the screens. He was looking at me. I ignored him on purpose. The door opened with a soft hiss, and Captain Morales walked in, a stack of files under one arm, her short hair slightly mussed like she'd been dragging her hands through it for the last hour, which, knowing her, she had. She dropped the files onto the table with a thud that made my coffee ripple. All right, she said, without preamble. We don't have time to hold anyone's hand, So we're skipping straight to the part you're going to hate. Good morning to you too, I murmured. She gave me a flat look that said she'd heard that and filed it under not important. Aiden straightened slightly. How many bodies? He asked. 2 more, if we're lucky, Morales said. 10, if we're not. She tapped a button on the remote in her hand. The map behind her shifted, zooming out to show multiple red points across the city. He's mobile, he escalated quickly. I don't like his curve. My stomach dipped. You're projecting off 1 kill. I'm projecting off the fact that he planned that kill like choreography, she said. And people who carve symbols into ribs don't usually aspire to a one-time performance. She turned to the other screen. Autopsy shots. The pattern on the victim's chest stared back at me in clinical high resolution. My throat went tight. Which brings us to the part you're going to hate, she repeated, this time looking directly at me. Only one part? I asked. We're being efficient today. Raphael. Her voice carried the warning tone of someone who had already used up their patience quota this week. Our analysts are good, but none of them see what you see. You read people like sheet music, you see the patterns the rest of us miss. My shoulders tightened under the compliment like it was another weight. You're the best profiler we have, she said. You're also, unfortunately, a civilian consultant with 0 field authority. Tragic, I said. So I'm fixing that, she went on, ignoring me. Effective immediately. You're attached to Bravo unit for the duration of this case. It took me a second to understand. Then my eyes slid sideways, to the only person in this room whose presence made that sentence make sense. Aiden didn't look surprised. Of course he didn't. He probably saw this coming before I did. Maybe he'd even suggested it. Bravo unit, I repeated slowly. As in him, yes, Morales said. You and Aiden are a pair now. Full access, full cooperation, full communication. You go where he goes. The room pressed in for a second, glass walls suddenly too close. No, I said. Morales lifted a brow. That wasn't one of the options on the table. I consult, I said. I don't do buddy cop. Or buddy hunt. Or whatever you people are calling it this year. Across from me. Aiden's mouth ticked in the faintest hint of amusement. Of course he was enjoying this. Morales set the remote down with exaggerated care. We have an unknown ritual killer targeting high-status dynamics in my city, she said quietly. He's using patterns I've never seen before. You have? Her gaze sharpened. Your notes from the scene read like you were translating a language you didn't want to admit you spoke. I looked away, jaw tight. Victims are going to pile up if we keep you in a lab, Raph, she continued. I need your brain on the ground. And I need someone with clearance and muscle to make sure you don't get yourself killed while you're following threads the rest of us can't see. Her eyes flicked to Aiden, then back to me. You want me alive, I said. That's new. I want this case closed, Morales snapped. Then, softer, and I don't like wasting good people. The words hit something in my chest I didn't want to name. I opened my mouth to argue again, but she cut me off with a small slice of her hand. No. I'm done listening to you say no. Bodies are going to drop faster than your excuses. You're on Bravo. That's final. I could have kept pushing. I've annoyed captains into early retirement before. But there was a certain look she got when she'd made up her mind, like reinforced concrete. I knew that look. Great, I said instead, leaning back in my chair. When do I get my matching tactical jacket? Tomorrow, Aiden said, speaking up for the first time since Morales started her speech. We're going to the quartermaster after this. You're not setting foot on another active scene in that cheap coat. I glanced at him. My coat is perfectly fine. It soaks through in 5 minutes and smells like burnt coffee, he said. We can do better. Morales pinched the bridge of her nose, muttered something in Spanish that I was 90% sure wasn't a blessing, and gathered her files. Work it out between yourselves, she said, heading for the door. I want a preliminary profile and a list of likely escalation points on my desk by morning. Aiden, don't let him vanish into his office and forget to eat again. The door hissed shut behind her, leaving the two of us alone with the glowing screens and the quiet hum of the air conditioning. Aiden didn't say anything for a moment. He just watched me, steady and unblinking, like he was cataloging all the ways I might try to escape. Congratulations, I said eventually. You finally got me on a leash. You must be thrilled. His jaw tightened. Don't, he said softly. The word wasn't loud, but something in it made the hairs on my arms stand up. I looked away first, irritated at myself for doing it. On the main screen, the autopsy photo glared back. the carved circle and lines like a brand. For a second my vision blurred, not from the screen resolution but from memory. A different room, different lighting, no glass, no steel, just concrete and old wiring hum, a locked terminal glowing in the dark. 5 years ago, the first time Aiden and I really saw each other, I'd bypassed 3 levels of security to get into IA's restricted archive. My hands had moved on instinct, keys and codes and silent shortcuts. I knew what I was looking for, my old pack's sealed records. Expunged, they said. Untouchable. Unless you knew where to dig. I'd just cracked the final barrier when a shadow fell across the screen. You know, a voice had said behind me, smooth and too close, most people knock before breaking into the department's most sensitive files. I didn't startle. I never did. I turned slowly, already spinning 3 different lies in my head. He stood in the doorway back then too, younger by 5 years but somehow exactly the same, tall, composed, eyes like storm glass, evaluating me piece by piece. He wasn't in uniform, but power clung to him all the same, thick and tangible in the air. Aiden Cade, he'd introduced himself. Internal Affairs Liaison. And you are very far from where your clearance says you're supposed to be, Raphael. I'd smiled. It hadn't reached my eyes. Good evening, I'd said. Door was open. It wasn't, he'd replied. He'd stepped inside, and his scent had rolled over me. Undiluted, sharp alpha, almost knocking my blockers sideways. For one terrifying second, I'd felt my own status strain against the chemical leash, instincts surging up like a tide. His pupils had flared, just a fraction. His nostrils had flared too. He'd almost smelled me. Almost. I'd slammed the door on my reaction, buried it under sarcasm and the sterile tang of the suppressants. Then, maybe you should file a complaint with security, I'd said, brushing past him like I had every right to be there. Their standards are slipping. He'd let me go. But his gaze had followed me, thoughtful and too interested. That gaze was the same now, 5 years later, in the cold light of the briefing room. You're thinking about that night, he said quietly. I snapped back to the present so hard I almost gave myself whiplash. I'm thinking about the fact that your captain just voluntold me into being your sidekick, I said. It's a different kind of horror. His lips twitched again. Then his expression smoothed out, eyes sharpening. You're doing it again, he said. Doing what? Lying, he said. Like he was commenting on the weather. He leaned forward, forearms braced on his knees, gray eyes locked on mine. You did it the night I caught you in IA's archives, and you're doing it now. You say it's nothing. That you've never seen these symbols. That this doesn't mean anything personal to you. He tilted his head slightly. But it does, he finished. And I'm going to find out why. The air seemed to thin between us. I forced myself to hold his gaze, forced a lazy half-smile I didn't feel. You always were persistent, I said lightly. It's one of your more annoying flaws. He didn't smile back. You're lying again, Raph, he said softly. And I'll still find the truth. I looked away first, fingers tightening around my coffee cup until the cardboard crumpled. That, I thought, was exactly what I was afraid of. The lab lights were too bright, too clean, too honest. They hummed overhead in long white strips, bleaching every surface into sterile perfection. The smell of disinfectant and reagent hung thick in the air, sharp enough to burn if you inhaled too deeply. A dozen glass evidence boxes lined the metal tables, each sealed and labeled. Each containing fragments of the worst part of someone's last moments. Most people hated this room. I preferred it. Here, the world was numbers and patterns. Clean. Contained. Predictable. Mostly. Aiden stood to my left, hands in his pockets, posture loose but eyes sharp. He didn't touch anything, smart, but his presence still felt like a weight against my ribs. Mari, the lab tech, gave us both a nod as she slid the last evidence box onto the table. Everything we pulled from the scene, she said. Have fun. She left before either of us could make a joke about that, which was fair. None of this was fun. I snapped on gloves and opened the box containing the victim's shirt. The fabric was stiff with dried blood, the cuts neat and straight. Walk me through it, Aiden said. Of course he did. I angled the shirt so the carved pattern was fully visible. These marks aren't decorative, they're functional. Every line has meaning. Aiden stepped closer. I pretended not to notice. These symbols. I traced a gloved finger just above the fabric, not touching it. You only see them inside a pack, never outside. They're part of internal rituals, hierarchy codes, oaths, that kind of thing. Internal to what kind of pack? Aiden asked. He sounded careful. I kept my face as smooth as I could. Traditional ones. Old-fashioned. Very closed door. Closed as in private, or closed as in illegal. I pretended not to hear that. They're used during initiation, I continued, pushing forward before he could needle more. Or during punishment rituals. Depends on the context. And this context? Aiden asked. I exhaled through my nose. This isn't punishment, this is messaging. To who? The answer was obvious. It sat on my tongue like poison. I avoided it. We don't have enough to say yet. Aiden studied me with the same intensity he studied corpses. Clinical, precise, unsettlingly patient. I turned to the next evidence box, needing the distraction. Inside were swabs sealed in airtight tubes, marked with their extraction points. Mari had already processed them through the scent analysis machine. The printout sat beside the box, neat rows of chemical markers and dynamic signatures. I picked them up. And froze. Aiden noticed instantly. What is it? I swallowed, the back of my throat suddenly dry. Something's off. Define off. I held up the printout. The killer's scent signature is faint, that's normal, he masked himself well. But underneath it, my eyes traced the highlighted markers again. No. No. There's a secondary signature, I said quietly. Aiden's posture sharpened. Victims? No. Different frequency. Different distribution. It's similar to... My hand tightened involuntarily around the paper. To mine... A beat of silence. Then, very softly, similar how? I forced air into my lungs. Like someone took the base markers of my old pack's profile, stripped down, distorted, and smeared them over the scene. So, you're saying, Aiden said slowly, someone used a synthetic echo of your scent? Yes. It wasn't technically a lie. Just not the whole awful truth. Aiden stepped closer. Too close. I didn't need to look to feel him. Warm, steady, watching. You're tense, he murmured. I'm surrounded by homicide evidence and you're breathing down my neck, I snapped. Of course I'm tense. I'm 3 meters behind you, he said. Then your thoughts are long, I shot back without turning around. A pause. Aiden's voice dropped, amused. Long thoughts? You know what I mean. Unfortunately I don't. I glared at him over my shoulder. Stop hovering. I'm standing still. His expression didn't shift, but there was definitely a glint of humor in his eyes. You're the one pacing. I looked down. My feet had moved. 2 steps forward. 1 back. Damn it. I forced myself to stand still, staring at the symbols like they might suddenly rearrange themselves into something less personal. These signs, I said quietly, aren't random. They're placed in the exact order of a pack rite. Which rite? I hesitated. He caught it. Raf. I hated how my name sounded in his voice. Too direct. Too knowing. These marks, I said, choosing my words carefully, are the opener to a binding ritual. A way of saying, I claim this. I define this. I speak to those who understand. Aiden absorbed that. Slowly. Deliberately. And do you understand? The air between us thickened. I understand enough, I said. Too much. I set the printout down before my fingers could crumple it. Aiden stepped even closer, lowering his voice. You said the killer is sending a message. He is. And you know who it's for. The words hit like a strike. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Because suddenly everything fell into place. The precision, the symbols, the distorted pack scent blended with mine. It wasn't random. It wasn't a signature. It was a conversation, a private one. Between predator and prey. Between pack and exile. Between a ghost from my past and the person I had spent years trying not to be. A chill rolled through me, sharp and electric. He's talking to me, I whispered. Aiden straightened. Raf. I know what he's saying, I cut in, voice tight. I know every word of it. And I wish I didn't. The rain turned the city into a blurred watercolor, streaks of neon smeared across soaked pavement. Headlights bleeding into one another like everything had melted slightly out of place. Aiden's SUV crept forward another 3 feet and stopped again. The wipers swiped back and forth with mechanical annoyance, beating a steady rhythm against the windshield. Outside, traffic was a solid, unmoving wall of red brake lights. Inside, the space felt smaller than I remembered. I shifted in my seat, tugging my coat tighter around myself even though it didn't help. The cabin smelled like leather, rain, and Aiden, sharp, clean ozone with that undercurrent that always made my blockers flicker restlessly. We'd been stuck for 40 minutes, maybe 50. I'd stopped checking the time. Gridlock from the storm, Aiden said, drumming his fingers once against the steering wheel. Calm. Patient. Like this was just another Tuesday. Half the highway's flooded. The exit ramp ahead might be underwater. Perfect, I muttered. Drowned on the way to a corpse. Very poetic. He snorted softly. You say that like we don't already swim in paperwork. I didn't look at him. I didn't want to see him amused. I didn't want to see that at all. Because the air in here was already too tight, too charged, too... I inhaled. Slow. Careful. And instantly regretted it. My blockers weren't holding steady. They were thinning, like fabric worn through at the seams. The mix of stress, proximity, the lab, the scent analysis report, my system was fraying under all of it. I leaned closer to the door, trying to pretend I was just exhausted. How long until we move again? Hard to say, Aiden replied. Maybe another half hour. Great. A car horn blared somewhere behind us. Someone shouted something unintelligible. The city roared, a constant animal heartbeat beneath the rain. In this suffocating little pocket of a car, though, all I could hear was the steady rhythm of Aiden's breathing. Smooth inhale, controlled exhale. Again. Again. I shifted again without meaning to, thighs brushing the edge of the console. Aiden glanced at me. You good? He asked. Fantastic. He didn't buy it. His eyes flicked down my hands, tapping against my knee without my permission, and then back to my face. You tense, he said. The whole city is tense, I retorted. We're in a metal box going nowhere. He hummed. That's not it. My jaw tightened. Don't analyze me. Then stop acting like a bomb someone forgot to defuse. I shot him a look. He didn't flinch. His gray eyes stayed steady, too observant, too clear. You always like this? He asked lightly. You always shake when an alpha sits within arm's reach? My pulse hitched. My breath caught. He noticed. Of course he noticed. No, I said. This is the air conditioning working too aggressively. Aiden casually reached toward the console without breaking eye contact. Funny thing about that, he said, tapping a button. A tiny display lit up. AC, off. My heart slammed into my ribs. There's no air conditioning running, Aiden said quietly. Hasn't been for the last 20 minutes. Silence folded over the car. I swallowed carefully. Go to hell. His mouth curved. Not quite a smile. Something smaller, sharper. Relax. I'm not judging. Just observing. Stop observing. Hard to. You're loud. I'm not. You're vibrating, he said. Like a phone on silent. I hated that he wasn't wrong. I hated even more that part of me wasn't sure whether the tremor running under my skin was fear. Or something else entirely. The rain hammered harder on the roof. The car lurched forward 2 feet, then froze again. Aiden leaned back in his seat, settling in like he had all the time in the world. You know, he said. When we were in the lab earlier something shifted. I don't know what you mean. You stopped breathing for a second. I do that sometimes, I said. Keeps things interesting. He huffed a quiet laugh through his nose. Right. The SUV idled, engine humming. The air was too warm now. Too thick. My breath came faster without my permission, and my blockers, my last line of defense, kept slipping. Aiden's posture changed. Barely. But I felt it like a lightning strike against my skin. His head swung toward me. His nostrils flared. No. Not now. Not here. The last thread of the blocker tore, and in that split second, one heartbeat no more, my true scent broke through. Warm. Sharp. Omega. Bare. Unhidden. Mine. Aiden inhaled. Deep. Instinctive. Shocked. His pupils dilated instantly, flooding black. Raf? His voice cracked raw at the edges. Nothing like the calm he always wore. He reached for me without thinking, hand lifting, fingers curling like he meant to anchor me. I jerked back. Too late. He'd already felt it. He moved closer, instinct flaring hard, his presence suddenly huge in the tiny car. And then... Bring. His phone blared like a siren, vibrating violently against the console. Aiden froze mid-motion. His hand still suspended an inch from my knee. I exhaled a shaky breath I didn't remember holding. He blinked hard, clearing the instinct from his eyes in one controlled swallow. Then he reached over, grabbed the phone, and answered in a voice so flat it could have been granite. "Cade." "Yes. We're en route." He hung up slowly. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us breathed normally. And the car, its walls too close, too warm, suddenly felt like a cage. But not for the reason I'd expected. The port at night always smelled like old ghosts, brine, rust, and the sour reek of something that had died long before anyone found it. Floodlights cast long yellow blades across the wet concrete, slicing between rows of stacked shipping containers. Rain hammered on the metal walls around us, echoing like distant artillery. It was colder here than in the city proper, the kind of cold that didn't belong to weather but to memory. Aiden and I ducked under the crime scene tape. The techs were already photographing the victim, their silhouettes warped by the glow of industrial lamps. The moment I saw the body, my stomach dropped. Not again. Not this soon. Male. Beta. Early 30s. Clothes torn in precise lines. Bare torso exposed to the sea air. And carved into his skin. My breath faltered. A different symbol this time. Not the opener of a rite. Not the greeting. This one was personal. The crescent mark beneath the sternum. The pair of diagonal slashes under the left rib. An old role. My old role. Last pupil. The one who was supposed to succeed the ritual master. My vision blurred for one awful heartbeat. I stepped toward the body, barely aware of Aiden shadowing me. "This isn't random," I whispered, more to myself than to him. "This is targeted." Aiden's eyes snapped to me. "What do the marks mean?" I didn't answer. Couldn't answer. My pulse roared in my ears, drowning out the crash of waves against the dock supports. The cold leached up my spine, familiar and unwelcome, like someone opening an old wound with a rusted blade. I forced a breath in. It shook anyway. Then, footsteps. Multiple. Heavy. Purposeful. A specific rhythm I'd spent years trying to forget. I went still. Aiden noticed instantly. He shifted, placing himself half a step closer to me. A subtle move. Protective. Instinctive. The shadows between two containers shifted. And out stepped a man I prayed I'd never see again. Taran, my former alpha. He looked almost exactly the same, broad shoulders, thick dark hair, a jaw cut from arrogance itself. But he'd aged around the eyes, fine lines etched deep from too much rage clenched too long. Behind him, another figure emerged. Jace. My former friend. Or the closest thing my old life had to one. His eyes flicked over me, startled for a fraction of a second before he schooled his expression into something cold. Taran's lip curled. Well, well. The prodigal coward. Aiden stepped forward before I could react, positioning himself squarely between us. Taran laughed, a sound that rattled like gravel in his chest. "I wondered how long it would take for you to crawl back," he said, ignoring Aiden entirely. "Didn't expect it to be because someone dragged your name through blood." I forced my voice to stay level. "I didn't come back." "You did," he said, eyes glinting. "Your scent is all over the case. Stupid to think you could hide forever." Aiden's tone cut through the air, cold as steel. "Back up." Taran blinked, finally acknowledging him. "And who are you supposed to be?" he asked. "His handler?" Aiden didn't blink. "Step back." The pressure in the air shifted. Not loud, not aggressive, just presence. Heavy. Controlled. Alpha power, without a single raised voice. Taran's smirk faltered for half a second. Half a second was enough. He took a small step back. My chest tightened. He shouldn't have stepped back. Not Taran. Not the man who made everyone else kneel. Something in him had changed. Or something in Aiden had grown sharper. Jace's gaze moved between us, calculating. "We heard an Omega was on site," he said lightly. "Didn't expect it to be you." My blood froze. Aiden's entire body went alert. I killed my reaction instantly. "You heard wrong." Taran tilted his head, scenting the air. "Maybe. Maybe not." Aiden's voice dropped a full octave. "You don't smell anything. You're not supposed to smell." Taran paused. Jace took a step back on instinct. The tension in the air thickened, electric, like the moment before lightning strikes metal. I swallowed hard. "What are you doing here?" Taran shrugged. "We follow the hunt." Someone's using our marks, using them badly. His eyes slid back to the body. And projecting them on the wrong people. His tone shifted on the last two words. Razor sharp. Accusatory. I met his stare without blinking. I'm here as a profiler. Nothing else. You're here because someone wants you here, Taryn growled. Someone's calling you home. The word home scraped down my spine like claws. Aiden shifted again, more openly this time, placing himself in front of me in a way that said, mine to defend. Try it. Taryn's eyes narrowed. But he didn't move closer. Not to me. Not to him. Finally, he sneered. We thought you'd died. Would have made life easier. My breath stuttered. Before I could respond, Aiden answered for me. You'll leave, he said flatly. Now. Taryn bared his teeth. Careful, Hunter. Aiden didn't move. You're done here. Another beat. A long one. Then, with a disgusted exhale, Taryn turned. Jace followed him, shooting me one last unreadable glance before disappearing into the rain-soaked maze of containers. Silence crept back in around us. Aiden didn't look at me right away. He kept staring at the darkness where they'd vanished, every muscle in his back taut. You okay? He asked finally. No, I whispered before I could stop myself. He turned. And for the first time tonight, his expression wasn't sharp or amused or assessing. It was understanding. Too understanding. I looked at the victim again, at the symbol carved into his skin. My symbol, my old role, my past, laid out in blood and rain. Aiden's voice came quiet, steady. What does that mark mean? I swallowed. It means he's not just imitating my old pack. Then what? My throat tightened. He's trying to rebuild it, I said. Piece by piece. And in the cold stink of rust and seawater, the truth settled over me like a shroud. He wants me back in the circle. Even if he has to drag me there over the bodies of strangers. My apartment had always been my sanctuary. 4 walls of order, control and silence. Everything in its place. No photographs. No clutter. No memories. Tonight the place felt wrong the moment I unlocked the door. Aiden stepped in behind me, one hand near the holster under his jacket, shoulders tight. His heightened senses hit before mine did, and I watched his expression sharpen. Don't touch anything, I said automatically. I wasn't planning to. His voice was low enough to rattle along my spine. I flicked on the lights. The living room came into view, clean lines, steel and wood, muted colors. Everything arranged the way I'd left it. Everything neat. Everything. My stomach dropped. Not everything. A thin smear of chalk, white against the dark wall, caught the light. A symbol. A circle intersected by 3 slanted lines. Too familiar. Too deliberate. Aiden reached it before I did. He was here, he said. Not a question. My pulse thudded in my throat. Looks like it. Aiden turned to me, eyes darkening. How long has he been inside your home? My guess? I forced a steady tone. Not long. The air's still. I cut myself off too late. Aiden's head snapped toward me. The air's what? Damn. The scent, I said, choosing my words carefully. It hasn't settled, fresh. Less than an hour maybe. His jaw flexed once. You shouldn't be able to sniff that out unless... Don't. I stepped away from the wall. Don't start that now. I'm already starting, he said. You read the scent field here faster than you read the lab samples. You're not telling me everything. I'm telling you enough. That's not enough for me. I turned away, pretending to check the windows. They were intact, locked. No sign of forced entry. He'd come in the way predators always do. Quietly. Confidently. Like he belonged here. You should tell Morales, I said. She'll want to sweep the building. We're sweeping it, Aiden said. You're not leaving my sight. The words were too close to an order, too heavy with instinct. I hated the way my body reacted. Not fear, not exactly. Something hotter. I moved into the kitchen to avoid answering. The light caught on something on the counter, a fallen glass. I picked it up and... A clean slice of pain shot across my palm. I hissed, and dropped the glass, which shattered again on the tile. Aiden was there instantly. Raph? It's nothing, I said through gritted teeth, staring at the flash of red welling across my skin. And then, my scent broke. Raw. Sharp. Not hidden. Not masked. Not controlled. It hit the air like a physical force. Aiden froze. Absolutely, completely froze. His pupils dilated so fast the shift was audible in the silence. His breath caught in his throat. His posture went tight. Not aggressive, but something just as dangerous. Instinct wanted to surge forward in him. I could see it in the flex of his hands, in the way he had to brace his weight to stay still. He inhaled once, shallow and slow. "Rough," he said, voice roughened around the edges. Don't." My voice cracked. "Please. Don't say it." His eyes flickered. Pain, confusion. Something else I didn't dare interpret. "You're bleeding," he said finally, forcing the words through clenched control. "I'll live." I grabbed a towel from the counter, pressing it tightly around my palm to trap the scent. "Just give me a second." He did. Barely. He stood there like he was restraining the world with his bare hands, every muscle wired taut. The air between us shimmered with pressure, instinct scraping against instinct. And despite everything, fear, anger, humiliation, I couldn't help feeling something else beneath it all. Recognition. He had felt me. Not the mask, not the lie. Me. I turned away, breathing carefully, trying to get the blockers to settle back into place. But they were unstable now. Cracked. And he knew. He knew. I wrapped the towel tighter and forced myself to look anywhere else. To the living room, the walls, the chalk mark. And that's when I saw the second message. A small folded scrap of paper on the floor near the bookshelf. Out of place. Out of context. White against dark. My heart stuttered. I approached it slowly. Picked it up with my uninjured hand. Unfolded it. 3 words, written in a looping, elegant hand I remembered too well. "The beast returns home." My throat closed. Aiden's voice came from behind me, low and steady. "What is it?" I didn't turn around, because the truth was a razor against my spine. "He was here," I whispered. "And he left this for me." Aiden stepped closer. Slow, careful. "What does it mean?" The paper trembled between my fingers. "It means," I said, swallowing hard, "that he thinks I'm coming back." I finally turned. "And that he'll drag me there if I don't." The Hunter headquarters buzzed with the kind of electric tension that made the air feel thinner, sharper. Screens flickered with surveillance feeds, heat maps, and scent distribution models. A giant digital layout of the city occupied the central wall, red markers burning like open wounds across districts. I'd barely stepped inside when Aiden rounded on me. "We're putting you under protection," he said. No greeting, no preamble. His voice was clipped steel. "Today. Now." I almost laughed. "Absolutely not. This isn't a negotiation, Raf. Everything with you is a negotiation," I shot back. "Or an interrogation." His jaw clenched. "He was in your apartment. I noticed. He left a message for you." "Also noticed." Aiden took a step closer, his presence pressing like a weather front, heavy and electric. "Then stop pretending this is fine." "I am fine. You're bleeding through your blockers. He cut himself off, eyes flicking, not down, not anywhere inappropriate. Just enough to remind me that he'd felt my scent crack open earlier. That he'd felt me. My stomach tightened. I turned away, toward the glowing map. "I'm not being put under guard." It wasn't a suggestion. "And what are you going to do?" I asked, voice breaking sharper than intended. "Pen me in, lock me in some Hunter safe house, track my every breath until you decide I'm stable enough to exist on my own?" "Raf, you've been waiting for this," I snapped. "Waiting for a reason to corner me again. To crack me open, to prove whatever theory you've had since the archives. That's not what I—" "Oh please." I gestured at him, at his rigid posture, at the storm in his eyes. "You smelled one crack in my blockers and now you think you have the right to keep you alive," he cut in. The force of it wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Silence snapped tight between us. His breath hitched, only barely. "Do you think I'm doing this to dominate you? To control you?" His voice thinned to something painfully honest. "You think I've been waiting 5 years just to catch you slipping?" "Yes." The answer tore out before I could stop it. A few texts nearby froze briefly, pretending not to listen. I swallowed hard, chest tight. "You followed me that night," I said. "You cornered me. I let you walk out. That stopped me cold." Aiden's eyes were steady, unflinching. "I knew you were hiding something. I knew your documents were forged. I knew your scent didn't match your records." I felt myself go still, breath locking in my throat. "I knew," he said again, softer this time, That you were suppressing a status that wasn't beta. The world tilted. You. My voice cracked. You knew? Yes. Then why didn't you report me? Because, he said quietly, I didn't think I had the right to decide your life for you. His voice deepened, not with dominance, but sincerity so heavy it made my chest ache. Because whatever your past was, whatever pack you ran from, whatever choice you made to hide it, he took a step closer. It was your choice, not mine to expose. Not mine to weaponize. Something in me trembled. Not physically, something deeper. And now? I whispered. Now, he said. Someone is killing people with your past, using your symbols, hunting through your memories, and I will not let him get to you. It should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like a cage. On the nearest console, an alert pinged. A new file popped up, a satellite view of an abandoned district on the outskirts, a scent marker flagged bright red. Mari leaned over the rail above us, shouting down, Cade, new trace, it matches the distorted signature again. Another ping. Location triangulated. Another, ritual map overlay. My blood ran cold. Aiden glanced at the screen, then back at me. You're staying here, he said. The words weren't a request. They weren't even an order. They were instinct wrapped in fear. He moved toward the tactical drawer to grab gear. That was my chance. I stepped back. Another step. Another. I mean it, Ruff. He still hadn't turned around. He didn't feel me moving away, which was the only reason I was able to slip out the side door unnoticed. The cold hallway swallowed me whole. Then the stairwell. Then the alley behind the building. My pulse hammered. My feet carried me without thought. I didn't stop until the city swallowed me too. Dark, wet, humming with danger. Because he was right about one thing. The killer was calling to me. And I couldn't let Aiden get dragged into the circle meant for me alone. Back in the briefing room, Aiden finally turned, with gear in his hands and a sentence on his lips. Raf. But the space beside him was empty. His eyes went wide. Not with anger. With fear. His voice cracked open into a snarl of instinct as he grabbed his comm. He's gone. A harsh breath. He went after the target alone. A pause. Then, lower. I'm going after him. Because now he saw it clearly. The next choice he made would either save both of us, or destroy everything between us for good. The abandoned hangar crouched at the edge of the old industrial district like a wounded animal, silent, half-collapsed ribs of rusted metal jutting through the dark. Wind howled through broken panels overhead. Loose sheets of aluminum clattered like teeth chattering in the cold. The air tasted of old wood, oxidized steel, and the stale remnants of pack rituals long dead. I stepped inside, boots crunching over debris. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back. But I kept walking. If the killer wanted me alone, this was the only way to draw him out without letting anyone else bleed from my past. My breath made small puffs in the air, visible in the faint beams of moonlight cutting through the holes in the roof. Shadows crowded the corners, thick and watching. Raf. The voice was a whisper, scraped raw and stretched too thin. My hand froze on the flashlight. He stepped out of the darkness like something unspooled from memory. Not Terran. Not Jace. Worse. Vale. I breathed. He had been a beta, or a weak omega depending on who you asked, in our old pack. Slender, soft-featured, eyes always lowered. The kind of dynamic the rituals were meant to mold into tools. But now, he was a hollowed-out version of himself. Cheeks sunken. Eyes fever-bright. Clothes soaked in old rain. His hands trembled with excitement he didn't bother hiding. Raphael, he said, voice trembling. I knew you'd come. I shouldn't have. I kept my tone steady. It's over, Vale. Whatever you think you're doing. Doing? His smile cracked across his face, like a wound reopening. I'm finishing what Terran never let us begin. He stepped closer. I resisted the urge to move back. You were chosen, Vale whispered. The last pupil. The one who'd carry our rights into the new order. He lifted a hand, and I saw the chalk-stained fingers. My lungs seized. He'd been in my apartment. He'd been everywhere. And then you fled, Vale said, voice tightening. You left us drowning in your silence. You abandoned the circle. Abandoned me. His breaths grew sharp, erratic. But I can fix that. Vale, I said slowly. You're sick. Those rituals, they broke you. Terran broke you. Terran was weak. Vale screamed, spittle catching the moonlight. He stopped the rites before they were complete. He let you leave. He let the circle die. The hangar trembled with the force of his anger, or maybe it was the wind rattling the old beams above. Hard to tell. Vale stepped closer, slipping into my space, smiling too widely. But I can cleanse your scent, reset you, bring you home. His fingers stretched toward me, trembling with anticipation. I'll carve the old marks into you, he whispered. Open the circle again. Return you to where you should have been. Cold terror spiked through my spine. But I didn't move. If I bolted, he'd chase. If I lunged, he'd strike. So I held my ground. He reached for my face with ritualistic reverence. Don't, I said. You can't stop destiny, Vale murmured. You were meant to lead us. You were meant to... A gust of wind tore through the hangar, rattling the panels. And then the air changed. Thickened. Deepened. Cracked open like pressure dropping before a storm. Vale froze mid-reach. I didn't have to turn to know what it was. Alpha. Not just any alpha. My alpha. The one my instincts had recognized long before my mind accepted it. Aiden stepped into the light with all the quiet rage of a man who'd been one breath away from losing everything. His presence slammed into the space like a force made of gravity and warning. His scent rolled out. Thunder, ozone, something sharp and electric. Cutting through Vale's frenzy like a blade. Step away from him, Aiden said. Vale staggered back, choking on his own breath. No, you don't belong here. He's mine to purify. Aiden's voice dropped to a low controlled growl that vibrated against the walls. He is not. My heart stuttered. Vale shrieked and lunged. Not at Aiden but at me. But he never reached me. Because Aiden moved first. Fast as instinct. Hard as fury. Quiet as death. He intercepted Vale mid-strike, dragging him to the ground with a precision that came from training and something far more primal. The sound echoed through the hollow hangar. I sucked in a shaking breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Aiden rose slowly from the pinned man, eyes blazing, chest rising and falling with the force of restraint. He looked at me. And the fury in him softened into something far more dangerous. Relief. You shouldn't have come alone, he said, voice rough. I had to, I whispered. His jaw clenched. No, you didn't. He stepped toward me, each footfall deliberate, anchoring. My knees almost gave. Because for the first time the truth wasn't a threat. It was a tether. And Aiden had followed it straight to me. The smells hit first. Blood, sharp and metallic. Fear, sour, electric. Wet metal. Rust and rain soaked into old beams. They tangled together in the cavernous hangar, choking the air as Vale thrashed under Aiden's grip. Stop fighting, Aiden snapped, pinning one of Vale's arms behind his back. It's over. It's not over. Vale's voice cracked. It hasn't even begun. He wrenched his free arm in a way no sane person would, shoulder joint popping with a sick wet sound. Aiden's grip slipped for half a second, and Vale twisted, slamming his forehead into Aiden's nose. Aiden grunted, staggered, and Vale tore away, scrambling across the concrete like something feral. He wasn't running for the exit. He was running for the circle. My heart dropped. In the far corner of the hangar, outlined in white chalk and dark stains, a ritual lay waiting. The marks were old, weathered, but fresh layers had been drawn over them in feverish, shaking lines. Symbols flared in my memory like afterimages. Vale skidded to a stop inside the circle's edge and dragged a hand across. His own already bloody mouth, smearing it over one of the outer glyphs. Vale, I said, stepping forward despite every instinct screaming at me to stay out. Don't do this. He laughed, high and brittle. You don't get to tell me what to do anymore, Raphael. You forfeited that right when you ran. Aiden moved to flank him, circling toward the left, eyes scanning. Always mapping. Always calculating. We've called an extraction team, Aiden said, voice low and even. This doesn't end the way you think it does. This ends exactly how it was always supposed to end. Vale shouted. With him in the circle, and the rest of you on your knees watching. His gaze snapped to mine, wild and shining. Come here, Raph, last pupil. Don't make me drag you. My legs locked. Because in my head, I was already there. The circle superimposed itself over an older one. Dirt instead of concrete. Fire instead of cold moonlight. Terran's voice instead of Vale's. My chest constricted. My lungs forgot how to work. I smelled smoke where there was none. Heard chants where there was only the howl of wind. Raph. Aiden's voice cut through the static. Look at me. I couldn't. Raf. Sharper this time. I dragged my eyes away from the chalk and blood, and met his gaze. Gray. Steady. Present. Stay with me, he said. Vale began tracing symbols in the air, fingers shaking, voice dipping into an old cadence that made my skin crawl. With blood we bind, with scent we seal, with pain we purify. He's trying to complete the rite, I forced out, words scraping past a too-tight throat. He needs blood in every quadrant and a willing center. Or, what he thinks is willing, so he can't complete it without you inside the circle, Aiden summarized. Or without improvising, I said hoarsely. Vale's gaze flicked between us, and his smile stretched. He understands, he whispered. He always understood. You see now, Raphael? You and I are the only ones who speak this language. I don't want to speak it, I said. He ignored that. He sliced his own palm open with a rusted ritual knife I hadn't even seen him pick up, letting his blood drip onto another sigil. If you won't step in willingly, he said, I'll force your scent into the center. He turned to me, eyes blazing. You're already breaking, aren't you? Blockers faltering, instincts screaming. I can smell it. My stomach lurched. Aiden moved then, not charging blind, but testing the circle's edge with a boot, watching how Vale's focus shifted. The chalk markings were messy, but still reactive. This ritual wouldn't work the way Val wanted, not fully. But it could still do damage. Still act as a weapon. Talk to me, Aiden murmured, not taking his eyes off Vale. What happens if we break the circle physically? If it's incomplete, I said, forcing my brain to function, disruption doesn't rebound hard. You can cut it. Just don't step fully inside until we... Vale snarled and slashed the air with the knife. Shut up. Then he did exactly what I was afraid of. He flung his bleeding hand outward, spraying droplets of blood in a crude arc that crossed 3 of the sigils, and landed just shy of my boots. Heat crawled up my spine like invisible fingers. Blood calls blood, Vale whispered. Old bonds never die. You know that, don't you, last pupil? My lungs seized again. My vision narrowed, tunneling down to the knife, to the circle, to the past clawing its way up through the present. You're ours, Vale hissed. You were always ours. You're the beast they tried to domesticate. You will come back to the pack, screaming or silent, but you... Stop? My voice didn't sound like mine. Vale blinked. Aiden's gaze flicked to me for a heartbeat. I stepped toward the edge of the circle. Every step felt like wading through mud, through memory. You keep saying I'm yours, I said quietly. Like a leash. Like a collar. Like a cage. Vale's smile widened, wild with triumph. Because you are... No. I took another step. Close enough now that the ritual's humming edge buzzed against my skin. You say I'm a beast. But you're the one gnawing on a dead pack's bones to feel important. His face twisted. You're not cleansing anything, I said. You're just... empty. And you want to stuff that emptiness with my fear. The knife trembled in his hand. Behind him, Aiden shifted again, sliding along the circle's edge, measuring distance. Vale's voice dropped to a vicious hiss. You are beast. You always will be. You will always be ours. The word ours hit like a physical blow, making my knees buckle. And then? Aiden's voice sliced through the ritual like a blade. He's not yours, he said, every word measured, ringing in the hollow space. And, he's not your beast. Vale spun toward him, knife raised. He's not anyone's beast, Aiden continued, stepping over a broken chalk line deliberately, disrupting a sigil with his boot. The air crackled but didn't strike. The ritual sputtered, craving completion and not getting it. He is a person, a survivor. And whether he wants me or not, Raf is my partner. The word hung there, heavier than any glyph. My chest clenched so hard it hurt. Partner. Not possession. Not property. Choice. Vale screamed, lunging for Aiden, knife flashing downward. Time warped. But Aiden had already anticipated the angle, the reach, the wild arc of Vale's shoulder. He stepped inside the swing, grabbed Vale's wrist and twisted with brutal efficiency. The knife clattered to the ground outside the circle. Now! I shouted. Aiden drove his shoulder into Vale's chest, shoving him across the broken lines and out of the ritual's center. The circle bucked, a wave of pressure, a crackle of failed energy. Then collapsed like a bad lung. Light flared once along the chalk, then died. Vale hit the concrete hard, air punching out of him. Aiden followed, pinning him in a controlled hold. Stay down, Aiden snarled. For a heartbeat, Vale thrashed. Then something in him broke, the fight bleeding out all at once. He crumpled, sobbing into the floor, muttering fragments of rituals that no longer held power. I exhaled. The relief was so sharp it hurt. And then everything hit me at once. The smells. The symbols. The memories. Aiden's words. Partner. Mine. My body reacted the way an omega's does when the world overwhelms them. Instinct, tearing past the frayed edges of blockers and rational thought. My knees buckled. I caught myself against a support beam, breathing too fast, chest too tight. The world narrowed down to scent and sound and the pounding of my own heart. Aiden's head snapped up. Ref. He handed Vale off to the arriving backup without looking away from me. Voices shouted, radios crackled, restraints clicked, but all of it blurred into noise as he crossed the distance between us. He stopped a full arm's length away. Didn't crowd, didn't touch, just stood there, solid, present. Breathe with me, he said quietly. I tried to laugh, it came out as a choked sound. I know how to breathe. Then prove it, he said gently. Inhale. His chest rose. Exhale. His shoulders eased. I followed. Once. Twice. Again. The jagged edges in my chest began to smooth, just a fraction. You're not in that circle, he said. You're here. With me. It's over. Is it? I whispered. Yes, he said simply. Because you broke it. Not me. You chose to stand outside. My vision cleared enough to see his face properly. No judgment. No smugness. Just a quiet, fierce kind of pride. My hands stopped shaking. Slowly, carefully, Aiden lifted one hand, giving me time to pull away if I wanted, and rested it on my shoulder. Warm. Steady. Anchoring. No pressure. No cage. Just a point of contact in a world that had been spinning for too long. For the first time in years, the word beast didn't echo like a sentence. It sounded like something I had survived. Morning in the city always surprised me. After the nights we lived through, the blood, the rituals, the ghosts clawing out of the past, dawn felt too soft, too gentle, like the world didn't know what had happened in its shadows. Steam rose from the manholes in faint white ribbons. The air smelled of rain-washed asphalt and bakery sugar. The sun pushed between high-rises like a timid newcomer, warm and pale. And for the first time in days I could breathe. The cafe near headquarters was one of those trendy places with mismatched chairs, potted, herbs on the tables, and a chalkboard menu in handwriting so cheerful it hurt my teeth. It was half full of early risers, officers finishing night shifts, joggers in neon gear, civilians who probably stopped by every morning without ever knowing what happened 3 blocks away in an old hangar. Aiden and I sat at a small table by the window, not facing each other, but angled just enough to talk without being watched. He nursed a black coffee. I nursed something with too much foam. The aftermath had been surprisingly kind. Internal affairs had cleared me. Morales had practically hugged me, which was terrifying in its own right. Every report listed my profiling as instrumental. They even offered me a permanent place in the unit. Civil consultant with full benefits, Morales had said. Or full agent status, if you want the badge. I hadn't answered yet. Maybe I didn't need to, not until I stopped shaking from old memories. Now, in the small peaceful bubble of the cafe, Aiden finally spoke. They want you on the team full-time, he said, staring into his coffee. You'd be damn good at it. I snorted lightly. You just don't want to fill out paperwork for a new consultant next time. His mouth twitched, the rare half-smile that still felt like sunlight whenever he let it slip through the armor. Maybe. Silence settled between us, not the heavy kind, not the choking kind. Just quiet. Steady. Like a soft blanket after too many nights spent fighting the cold. I traced my thumb around the rim of my cup. I'm not used to this, I admitted. Aiden lifted his eyes to me. This? Being wanted for something other than what I can do. Or what I used to be. My throat tightened. Being given space to choose. His gaze warmed. Not in a possessive way, but in a patient, grounding one. You always had a choice, Raf. A humorless breath escaped me. I didn't feel like it. He set his cup down. Then let me be clear. The seriousness in his voice made something in me still. I'm not here to chase you, he said. Not to corner you. Not to drag you back into anything. I don't want you because of what you can do, or what your old pack made you into. He leaned in slightly, tone low. I want you safe, I want you free, and if you ever choose to stay, I want you with me. As you are. My chest tightened painfully. I looked away, toward the street. People walking dogs, buses crawling through traffic. Life moving as if the world hadn't nearly swallowed me whole last night. Then I said the thing I had never said to anyone. I wasn't scared of you because you're an alpha. Aiden stilled, sudden, precise. I was scared of you, I continued. Because you're the one person I could fall into without noticing I was falling. The breath he let out was sharp, almost shocked. Then soft, warm, rough. I finally met his eyes. Gray, steady, and more open than I'd ever seen them. I felt you from the first day, he said quietly. In the archive room. You slammed the door on it so fast I thought I'd imagined it. I almost wish you had, I murmured. He shook his head. No, I'm glad I didn't, but I waited. Because whatever we are, it has to be yours to choose. Always. My fingers tightened around the cup until the ceramic warmed my whole palm. This isn't the easiest version of me, I warned. He smirked. Good. Easy is boring. A soft, involuntary laugh escaped me. And then? I felt it. A moment. A small opening inside myself where fear used to sit, heavy and immovable. I inhaled slowly. Letting my blockers lower just a fraction. Just enough. Warm, clean, unmasked scent slipped into the air between us. Hesitant at first, then steady. Soft earth after rain. Smoke from a distant fire. Something new blooming through something old. Aiden's breath caught. His eyes widened, not with hunger, not with dominance, but with something almost reverent. You... His voice broke. Raf? I'm choosing, I said quietly. Right now. He didn't reach for me. Didn't crowd me. Just closed his eyes for one lingering second, drawing in the scent I'd kept locked away for years. When he opened them again, everything in his gaze was stabilizing warmth. The city outside the window brightened. People laughed. Someone spilled their coffee. The world went on, stubborn and alive. And inside this tiny cafe, something in me finally stopped running. I took a slow breath, free, unhidden, mine, and felt Aiden's presence settle beside me like a second heartbeat. Warm, steady, chosen. I wasn't going back to a pack. I wasn't returning to any circle. But for the first time in years, I wasn't walking alone.